At the race, Yomaski finds his thoughts drifting to his love for romantic comedies about childhood friends. He imagines his own childhood friends confessing to him if they were in a rom-com. But as the race begins, reality quickly catches up to him. He knows those fantasies will never come true. Looking down at his palm, he sees that to win the race, he needs to find someone he loves. One morning, Yonaski wakes up feeling cold. Instinctively, he calls out Shio's name, already convinced she's the reason the window is wide open. He feels arms suddenly wrap around his torso as he realizes Shio is cuddling him. As he tries to pry her off, she only tightens her grip, forcing him to lie on top of her. If this were a romantic comedy, he knows this scene could lead to something dirty. But this is reality, so he pinches Shio's lips. Shio stirs, then immediately stiffens once she realizes Yonaski is right in front of her. She panics and starts yelling at him for sneaking into her room, only for Yonaski to point out that it's actually his room. Shio switches tactics and blames him for not fixing his lock. Eventually, she drops the argument and casually tells him she'll be at the front door. She climbs out through the window, insisting there's nothing wrong with using a shortcut. She doesn't notice the wind lifting her skirt. Yonaski hurriedly points out that she's flashing him. While getting ready for school, Yonaski tells himself it would be strange to start seeing Shio as a romantic interest. Still, he can't deny that what he saw earlier was sexy. When he finally steps outside, Shio immediately clings to his arm. He asks her to let go, but she only snuggles closer, insisting this is normal. As they walk to school, Yonaski feels disappointment. He's sure that to Shio, he's just a friend, while he keeps thinking dirty thoughts about her. He swears to himself that he will never let Shio know about the indecent thoughts. Meanwhile, Shio is irritated because, despite her efforts, she still isn't getting the reaction she wants from him. She subtly presses her chest closer to his arm, hoping to make him notice. Instead, Yonaski only complains about how hard it is to walk. Hearing that makes Shio grumble inwardly about how much effort she puts in every single day just to catch his attention. She convinces herself that someday Yonaski's heart will belong to her. An idea suddenly comes to mind. Pretending to trip, she deliberately pulls him down with her. Just as she planned, Yonaski lands on top of her. She accuses him of touching her chest on purpose. She recalls seeing a similar scene in one of the comics he keeps in his room, so she's confident that this kind of situation should appeal to him. However, Yonaski's reaction is dry. He calmly gets up and complains about how clumsy she is. In reality, he's struggling to keep his expression under control. Seizing another chance, Shio suddenly claims that she sprained her ankle, putting on a cute act in hopes that it'll finally make him flustered. Instead, she's caught off guard when Yonaski helps her to the side of the road and pulls out a first aid kit. Yonaski explains that he's always prepared because Shio has always been reckless. He even recalls how, when they were kids, she used to jump across rooftops and get hurt in the process. Shio blushes, realizing how closely he's been watching over her. Once Yonaski determines that her ankle is fine, he insists that they should continue heading to school. Shio quickly catches up to him and grabs his hand. The sudden contact makes both of them flustered. Shio struggles to come up with an excuse to keep holding his hand and blurts out that she just wants to make sure he actually goes to school, remembering how she used to drag him there when they were younger. To reinforce her excuse, she lifts one leg slightly and claims her ankle still hurts and that she could use some support. Seeing no point in arguing, Yonaski gives in and they continue walking hand in hand. Despite this, Yonaski feels a quiet wave of disappointment. He knows that this is probably as far as his relationship with Shio will ever go. As they near the main street, he starts wondering what people might think if they see them. Yonaski pretends not to care, and the two of them walk forward into the crowd. Still, he can't help feeling surprised that Shio is willing to be seen like this with him. His imagination runs wild because the situation feels far too close to a romantic comedy moment. They're startled when they hear something drop and turn to see Akari staring at them with a bewildered expression, nervously pointing at their hands. They immediately pull apart and try to explain. Akari's confusion quickly melts into a mischievous grin as she starts teasing them. As she bends down to retrieve her fallen bag, she struggles to keep her composure. Luckily, Yonaski is too focused on clearing up the misunderstanding to notice her shaking shoulders. Suddenly, Akari's demeanor changes. She turns cold toward him and accuses Yonaski of being a creep toward Shio. She claims that it's her duty as one of his childhood friends to teach him a lesson. She turns to leave, but Yonaski panics and tries to stop her, accidentally grabbing her chest. Akari immediately explodes, scolding him while strangling him. Shio hurriedly steps in and trying to calm her down by explaining that they were only holding hands because she wanted to drag Yonaski to school. Realizing the misunderstanding, Akari freezes before turning away in embarrassment. She calls both of them idiots. Both Shio and Yonaski feel awkward and embarrassed. They had both thought that maybe they were finally making some progress in their relationship. Yonaski starts imagining how both Akari and Shio would completely embarrass him if they ever found out he caught feelings for Shio. Once Akari puts enough distance between them, she drops her act. She pulls out an old photo of her and Yonosuke from their childhood. She realizes that if she doesn't do something, Shio might actually win him over. She regrets being so harsh toward him. Still, she mutters to herself that her actions are only because he's annoying. Her face turns red as she wonders if he thinks she's flatter than Shio. She swears to the sky that Yonosuke will pay for this. She tells herself she doesn't care about him at all. In contrast, Shio silently cheers herself on, convinced she can make Yonosuke love her. Meanwhile, Yonosuke vows that no one will know his thoughts. At school, Haori immediately calls him a creep when she notices he bought the same drink as her. Akari is Yonosuke's other childhood friend, but they are constantly fighting. Shio scolds them, but is called away for her class representative duties. The moment she leaves, they immediately start insulting each other. Yonosuke instantly regrets his words, remembering how, when they were younger, Akari used to be sweet and constantly stuck by his side. Now he can't help but wonder if she even considers him a friend. Hoping to make amends, he mentions his drink and casually tells Akari how good it tastes. Akari pretends not to care at all. In her mind, Akari curses him for not noticing her efforts. She had glammed up, studied hard so they could attend the same school, and even bought the same drink just to give them a chance to talk. She promises herself that she'll start being nicer if Yonosuke would just look her way. They end up opening their drinks at the same time, and Akari immediately accuses him of copying her. Yonosuke suddenly realizes he's holding Akari's drink. He tries to warn her that she grabbed the wrong one, but it's already too late. Akari's eyes widen as the realization sinks in. She gets flustered by the thought that she's just shared an indirect kiss with Yonosuke. Akari regains her composure and teasingly insults him, saying he's acting like a grade schooler for getting worked up. Noticing how red his face has become, she decides to tease him even more, even calling him a virgin. That comment finally makes Yonosuke snap back. He asks if she has any experience herself. Akari pretends to be confident, claiming that she does, and says the only reason she froze earlier was that the idea of sharing an indirect kiss with him was disgusting. Yonosuke fires back, insisting that he can kiss with his eyes closed. Their argument starts drawing attention, and Akari turns away, hiding her tears. The thought that Yonosuke kissed someone else hurts more than she expected. Trying to brush it off, Akari pretends not to believe him and challenges him to prove it by kissing her. They eventually find themselves by the staircase, both trembling with nerves while trying to fake confidence. Yonosuke notices that Akari is shaking, but she quickly mocks Yonosuke for his visibly trembling knees. After a moment, Yonosuke finally comes clean and admits that he has never kissed anyone before. Akari's entire demeanor changes, and she suddenly looks at him more gently. She cups his face and slowly leans in, leaving Yonosuke stunned. For a brief moment, it feels romantic. Just before their lips meet, Shio's voice interrupts them. They turn to face her blank stare. Shio suddenly steps closer, and Yonosuke begins to panic, worried that the situation is turning into a messy love triangle. Instead, Shio casually reaches up and pulls a loose thread from his hair, asking if they were getting close because Akari wanted to remove it. Akari nervously agrees, then accidentally trips, revealing her bear print underwear. Shio immediately covers Yonosuke's eyes. Yonosuke makes fun of Akari for being a kid, which earns him a sharp punch to the stomach. They immediately start arguing again, only reinforcing Yonosuke's belief that he can never be in a relationship with a childhood friend. Meanwhile, Shio mistakenly thinks that the two of them almost kissed and realizes that Akari may be her greatest threat. Back in the classroom, Yonosuke's male classmates gush over Shio and Akari, openly admiring how beautiful they are. They complain that it's a waste that both girls are close to Yonosuke and even ask if he's ever seen them change clothes. Yonosuke hurriedly insists that he doesn't see his childhood friends as women. He doesn't realize that Shio has just walked in. Shio pretends not to be offended and suddenly hugs him. When Yonosuke asks her to let go, she only presses closer, insisting that it's fine since they are close. She then asks if she can copy his homework. Yonosuke hands her his notes and tells her to stop clinging to him, but Shio ignores him. Instead, she casually sits down on his lap and starts copying his homework. When Yonosuke protests, saying it's inappropriate, Shio only rubs herself against him. This causes him to let out an involuntary sound, making him panic. Unfortunately for him, everyone notices and his classmates immediately start calling him a pig. Shiva defends him, saying that she and Yonosuke have always acted like this. He tells her to hurry up and finish copying his homework. Shio does as he says, but she's clearly pleased now that she's confirmed his weakness. She teasingly grinds against him, knowing it's an effective way to make him finally see her as a woman. Akari scolds them for causing such a scene and insists that Shio copy the homework somewhere less scandalous. She tries to pull Shio off Yonosuke's lap, but Shio stubbornly refuses. Taking it as a challenge, Akari tells Shio to scoot over and sits down on Yonosuke's other leg. The entire class stares at the bizarre scene as Akari explains that she forgot her homework and that by sitting here, strange rumors won't spread about Shio. Akari begins to fidget nervously, which Shio interprets as a challenge. In response, Shio grinds herself even harder against Yonosuke. Unable to take it anymore, Yonosuke scolds both of them and pushes them off his lap, accidentally touching their chests in the process. He quickly excuses himself to go to the bathroom. Shio becomes more determined than ever to win his heart, while Akari remains overwhelmed. Alone in the bathroom, Yonosuke can only complain about the girl's actions. Yonosuke rushes through the crowd to get onto the bus, his mind filled with thoughts about how forbidden it feels to fall in love with his childhood friends. He manages to get on, but since it's crowded, he has to stand and hold on. He accidentally bumps into another passenger and quickly turns to apologize. For a moment, he notices how pretty she is, though something about her feels strangely familiar. When she turns around, Yonosuke realizes it's Shio, who smiles happily when she sees him. Yonosuke tells her he's on his way to the bakery because there's a big sale on their goods, which happens to be where she's headed as well. Shio starts talking, completely unaware that Yonosuke's gaze is on her as he begins to notice how much more mature she's become. Suddenly, the bus swerves to the left, throwing Shio off balance. Without thinking, Yonosuke catches her. To hide his embarrassment, he starts complaining, but Shio only presses herself closer, even wrapping her arms around him. Yonosuke takes a few deep breaths to calm himself down. Noticing his reaction, Shio takes the chance to tease him. Lowering her voice, she asks if he's feeling motion sick. Yonosuke blushes at how close they are, and his embarrassment deepens when Shio gently rubs his earlobes. She explains that she used to do this when he would get motion sickness as a kid. He can't deny how much this intimate moment is affecting him, so he suddenly pulls her into a hug to hide his face as Shio stiffens in surprise. Yonosuke quickly makes up an excuse, saying that he feels a little sluggish and would appreciate it if Shio could help him get to the bakery. He tells himself that this position is better, since he doesn't have to look into her eyes. Still, his racing heart betrays him. When he decides to look at her again, he's caught off guard by her flustered expression. Shio tries to say something, but before she can, Yonosuke quickly leads her off the bus. Once they step outside, Shio looks at him in confusion, since the bakery is still farther down the road. Yonosuke tells Shio to stop hiding her feelings. Shio feels a spark of hope, wondering if Yonosuke somehow knows that she loves him. She pretends to be confused and asks him to explain. Instead of answering directly, Yonosuke walks over to a vending machine and buys her a soda. When he hands her the can, Shio looks puzzled. Yonosuke explains that it's for her motion sickness, since he knows she's just as prone to it as he is. He also knows that Shio usually perks up after having a soda. Though she gives him a slightly gloomy look, she accepts it anyway. The two of them sit down on a nearby bench and start drinking. Shio feels grateful for the small gesture, even though she can't help thinking that maybe it isn't the right time for them to have a romantic comedy moment. Still, she slowly leans against him, telling herself that she just needs to keep trying. When Yonosuke notices her weight against him, Shio casually explains that she likes the feeling of him. Yonosuke pretends not to care, but the hand holding his soda trembles from his nerves. Back at school, the three childhood friends are playing a word game. Akari suddenly stops on her turn, complaining that it's stupid to be playing something like that at their age. Shio whines that she's bored and just wanted to do something together, but the rain is keeping them from going outside. Akari says that the rain will probably stop by the time school ends, but she decides to continue the game for Shio's sake. When it's Yonosuke's turn, he says Shio's name, which instantly grabs both girls' attention. Realizing how it sounded, Yonosuke quickly explains that he didn't mean her name, but a Japanese word that just happens to sound similar. Akari feels a stab of jealousy that Shio's name came so naturally to him, but she quickly turns that feeling into irritation. They keep playing the word game, but now Akari deliberately ends all her words with A, trying to bait Yonosuke into saying her name. Even after several rounds, despite her careful setup, Yonosuke never says it, which makes her irritated. Yonosuke grows annoyed since he keeps having to start his words with A, but he ends up crushing Akari's hopes by saying Aloe. Shio smoothly follows with Yonosuke's nickname, Ayu, which shocks both Yonosuke and Akari. However, she quickly teases him that she meant to say hey you in their accent. Akari fumes inwardly as she realizes they're practically calling each other, so she decides to double her efforts. The game begins again with Akari and she tries to bake him again, but her name still isn't said. When she's forced to come up with a word starting with E, she shyly blurts out Yonosuke's nickname. Both Yonosuke and Shio stare at her in surprise as she tries to pass it off as the same joke Shio used earlier. Shio quickly points out that repeats aren't allowed, meaning Akari has just lost the game. They prepare for Akari to receive her punishment. Watching this, Shio can't help thinking it might have been better if she had lost instead. After school, it starts raining again as Yonosuke heads home. While passing a shrine, he spots Akari taking off her soaked stocking while complaining about the weather. Yonosuke lets out a startled sound, alerting Akari to his presence and making her slip. Flustered, Akari starts throwing random items at him, forcing him to retreat. As Yonosuke leaves the shrine, guilt washes over him for leaving her behind. Akari, feeling miserable about the situation, is surprised when Yonosuke suddenly comes back, holding out his umbrella and offering to walk with her. Not wanting to look weak, she refuses at first, but quickly takes it back when he starts to walk away. She makes it seem like he begged her to come with him, just so it looks like he owes her instead of the other way around. The two of them leave the shrine together, both unsure of what to say. Meanwhile, Shio is also walking home, feeling a little disappointed that she didn't get to go with Yonosuke. She was supposed to have a meeting, but she just found out it was canceled. Her mood lifts when she suddenly remembers that there's a big sale on snacks, and she hurries off toward the store to grab some. Just then, Yonosuke and Akari turn the corner from where Shio had just come from. The two of them are awkward around each other, which Yonosuke finds strange, considering that Akari is also his childhood friend. Looking at her more closely, Yonosuke realizes that Akari suddenly seems more mature than he remembers. The silence becomes too heavy, so Akari complains about how fast he's walking and how she's still getting soaked because he's holding the umbrella too high. Yonosuke adjusts it for her and can't help thinking that Akari probably hates him. Akari pushes his face away so he won't look at her, making Yonosuke wonder where the old Akari went. What he doesn't realize is that Akari is struggling to manage her emotions. Her cold attitude shows because she doesn't know how to act in this situation, even though she's secretly happy about how considerate he's being. She notices that Yonosuke's shoulder is getting soaked, so she pulls him closer and offers him the umbrella so he can dry it off. Yonosuke misunderstands her gesture and assumes she wants him to wipe her off instead. He asks what part she wants him to dry. Akari grows irritated and points out that she meant his shoulder. As she takes hold of the umbrella so he can dry himself, she accidentally grabs his hand. They both quickly pull away, but the awkwardness lingers. Yonosuke is confused by Akari's behavior, feeling like she keeps sending him mixed signals. He then notices she's holding the umbrella too high and points it out. Akari nervously admits that she's doing it for him since he's grown taller and she doesn't want to hit his head. Hearing that makes Yonosuke blush, since he rarely sees this gentle side of her anymore. Suddenly, a car speeds past and Yonosuke instinctively pushes Akari to shield her, causing the umbrella to fall from her hand. They're both unharmed, but Yonosuke realizes they're now completely soaked. He also notices he's holding her tightly and quickly lets go. Instead of snapping at him, Akari softly thanks him. Yonosuke feels there might still be a chance for them to mend their strained relationship, so he tells her that he's glad they got to walk home together, even with the rain pouring down. Suddenly, they both realize the state of Akari's clothes, and Akari assumes that this had been Yonosuke's goal all along. She slaps him hard, and Yonosuke convinces himself that he can never be part of a romantic comedy with her. Later that evening, Shio proudly looks over the haul spread out on her table. She thinks about sharing the snacks with Yonosuke, but notices that the lights in his room are still off. She then glances at the house next door and sees that Akari is home. Akari has her earphones on and carelessly complains about her feelings for Yonosuke to her stuffed animal. She doesn't realize that Shio is by her window and has heard everything. While staring at a picture of Yonosuke and venting, Akari suddenly feels a strange presence and finally notices Shio watching her through the window. She panics, realizing she isn't presentable. Akari complains that Shio should have knocked, while Shio tries to hide her own awkwardness by suggesting they have a snack party, holding up a large plastic bag filled with snacks. They eventually sit down and start eating. Shio feels uneasy, knowing Akari had been looking at a picture of Yonosuke earlier. Akari decides to bring it up herself and says that she doesn't have any feelings for Yonosuke. This puts Shio at ease for a moment, but as Akari keeps talking, Shio notices her expression soften. Carefully, Shio asks if Akari is really sure she doesn't have feelings for him. Akari immediately snaps that she hates Yonosuke, before calming down and saying she just wants to get along with him again as childhood friends. Shio admits that Yonosuke is stubborn, and that maybe the three of them would have been better friends if he had been kinder. Hearing this makes Akari think about how much she would actually like a gentler Yonosuke. Her face turns red, and to hide her embarrassment, she blurts out that the idea of Yonosuke being nice makes her sick. Shio is confused by how Akari keeps contradicting herself. Trying to change the subject, Akari shows Shio a cute video she found, but Shio accidentally sees part of her search history. Realizing where Shio is looking, Akari panics and accidentally smacks her with her phone. She quickly apologizes and rushes to grab an ice pack. When she opens one of her cabinets, several albums filled with pictures of Yonosuke tumble out. Akari tries to explain that Yonosuke just photobombs a lot, but the more she talks, the more obvious it becomes that Shio doesn't believe her. Even without Akari admitting it, Shio already knows the truth. She remembers how, when they were kids, they promised never to hide secrets from each other because they were best friends. Nervous but determined, Shio asks again what Akari truly feels about Yonosuke. Akari admits that Yonosuke is annoying because he treats both of them poorly. She says that even though they're his childhood friends, the least he could do is treat them like girls and be more considerate. Hearing this, Shio no longer feels threatened and agrees with her. She mentions how, just last year, Yonosuke gave her a toy dinosaur. The two of them start taking turns complaining about him before bursting into laughter. Deep down, they both know that even if they fall for the same person, they'll still remain best friends. While they're laughing, they don't realize that Yonosuke is standing outside Akari's room, able to hear everything because he had come to return the handkerchief. He turns to leave, but a sudden scream makes him rush inside. What he sees is so embarrassing that Akari immediately explodes, yelling at him for barging in and beating him up. Shio assesses the situation and wonders if Akari hates Yonosuke. One evening, Yonosuke finds himself on top of Shio, wondering how he ended up in this situation. One morning, Shio reads the latest volume of a romantic comedy comic in Yonosuke's room. She had snuck in again while he was still sleeping and decided to catch up on the series. As she reads, she tears up because the main heroine has finally ended up with her childhood friend. She wants a happy ending like that too. Shio glances over at Yonosuke and wonders if he feels the same way. Realizing her eyes are puffy from crying, she decides it's time to leave. Before climbing out the window, she gives Yonosuke one last smile and silently swears that she will have a romantic comedy with him. On his walk to school, Yonosuke recalls the previous day. He had managed to get his hands on the latest volume of a comic he'd been collecting. To avoid being recognized, he had gone out in disguise. Unfortunately, Shio and Akari spotted him immediately. He tried to hide the comic under his shirt as the girls crowded around him, eager to find out what he was hiding. The situation reminded him of a familiar romantic comedy setup, and while he was lost in his thoughts, the comic fell to the ground. Shio instantly recognized it as part of the series he kept hidden under his bed. Both Akari and Yonosuke were shocked that she knew, so Shio casually explained that she had seen them while lying around in his room. Akari wasted no time teasing him, pointing out that his taste in comics suggested he might be fantasizing about childhood friends. As Yonosuke continues walking to school, he dreads the day ahead, convinced they will keep mocking him. Suddenly, Shio covers his eyes from behind. He lightly scolds her for being too touchy in public. It didn't bother Shio at all, so she continues being affectionate as usual, but Yonosuke interprets it as teasing. Choosing to ignore her, he walks ahead. Before class, Shio tries approaching him again, but he excuses himself. At lunch, she makes another attempt, only for him to leave. Defeated, Shio returns to her desk. Troubled by how unusually cold Yonosuke was acting, Akari notices and offers to listen. Shio admits that Yonosuke has been distant lately. Nervous about the topic, Akari quickly brushes it off by calling Yonosuke a brat and mocking his love for romantic comedies. She encourages Shio to stay confident and keep pushing forward before walking away with a nervous laugh. After school, Shio ends up hiding in the gym storage room. She knows Yonosuke is supposed to be on cleanup duty there later, and she wants to reenact a scene from the romantic comedy comic. The scene involves the two leads getting trapped together in a storage room. Meanwhile, Akari decides to go with her friends, while Yonosuke is told to clean the classroom instead of the gym. Unaware of the change, Shio continues to wait for Yonosuke. She stays there for hours and she eventually falls asleep. When she wakes up, she realizes it's already late. She rushes to the door only to find that it won't budge. She considers calling someone for help, but her phone is already dead. She tries shouting for help, but after a while, she realizes it's pointless. Shio rests on some foam mats and wonders if she'll end up completely alone. She's always been alone, and now that Yonosuke's acting cold toward her, she finds herself feeling the same sadness from before. Suddenly, she hears strange sounds coming from the door. It opens and Yonosuke appears, panting as if he ran all the way there. When he sees Shio, he tells her he knew she was there. He assumes she'd planned to surprise him during cleanup duty. He then turns away and says they should head home, since everyone is worried about her. Shio looks at him and tells him she's thankful he found her. Nervously, Yonosuke replies that it's because they're childhood friends. His words trigger a memory for Shio, another time when Yonosuke saved her from her loneliness. He had brought her meatballs and even sat down to eat with her. He had told her to call him whenever she felt lonely because they were childhood friends. Blushing, Yonosuke decides to let everyone know that he's found her. Shio brightens at his concern and finally admits that she was afraid he hated her because of how cold he had been acting lately. Yonosuke pales, not wanting to admit that he acted coldly because he was embarrassed that Shio found out about his comic collection. Overcome with excitement, Shio moves to hug him. Yonosuke isn't prepared to catch her and they end up toppling to the ground. Yonosuke quickly tries to get off her, but Shio suddenly asks if it's okay for them to stay alone together. Meanwhile, Akari's nervousness continues to grow as Yonosuke still hasn't responded to her messages. Yonosuke manages to pull himself together. Instead of kissing her, he presses her lips together with his hand and scolds her for playing around when everyone is worried about her. He gets off her and reaches for his phone as he convinces himself that this was just Shio trying to tease him again. Shio feels a bit disappointed that nothing has changed between them, but she forces a smile and casually says that she's hungry. She wonders out loud if she'll be having hamburger steak for dinner. Her words make Yonosuke remember the time they shared meatballs when they were kids. Shio notices that he suddenly grows quiet. Yonosuke props himself up and sits on the stage, then asks her if something has been bothering her. Shio pouts, realizing that Yonosuke seems to read her too easily. She climbs onto the stage as well and sits beside him. She tells him that she doesn't really want to talk about anything, but just wants to spend more time with him. They sit in silence for a while and Yonosuke starts to feel nervous. Trying to break the ice, he jokes that Shio has suddenly gotten shy, explaining that Shio is usually very touchy. Shio's expression softens into something sad as she quietly reminds him that he was the one who told her to stop. Feeling guilty, Yonosuke tells Shio that she's free to do those things when it's just the two of them. She immediately takes the opportunity, holding his hand and leaning against him. She notices right away that he smells nice, which gives away the fact that Yonosuke already showered before he ran out to look for her. Yonosuke feels his nerves creep up again as Shio squeezes his hand and admits that she wants to spend more time with him. She leans in to hug him and shares how strong her feelings for him are. Just as Yonosuke starts to think that it might actually be possible to begin a romantic comedy with Shio, the gym lights suddenly turn on. Akari stands by the door, panting heavily. Yonosuke and Shio immediately pull apart as Akari approaches. She fixes Shio with a stern glare, but it quickly breaks as she starts crying and hugs Shio out of sheer worry. Akari turns her concern into anger toward Yonosuke for not texting her that he found Shio. Yonosuke argues that he did, which makes Akari check her phone. She sees his message, sent over 20 minutes ago, and grows frustrated again because he didn't bring Shio home right away. Shio tries to explain, telling Akari that she got trapped in the storage room and just needed a moment to calm down after getting out. Yonosuke's eyes widen when he realizes that Shio doesn't mention their moment together. Shio excuses herself to use the restroom. As she leaves, Yonosuke convinces himself that Shio was simply lonely and that there's nothing going on between them. Akari, however, remains suspicious and asks if Yonosuke has feelings for Shio. Yonosuke admits that he likes Shio, but quickly adds that he sees her as family. That answer doesn't satisfy Akari, and she demands the truth. Yonosuke insists that he's being honest and that they're just childhood friends. Not long after, Shio returns and the three of them head home. Later that evening, Yonosuke has trouble sleeping as he keeps thinking about Shio, especially since the way she spoke sounded almost like a confession. Morning finally arrives and Yonosuke peeks out of his door. When he sees Shio leaving her house, he feels that all his efforts to bury his feelings were useless. He hides his nervousness by casually chatting about her changed uniform, and they begin walking to school together. During the walk, Yonosuke can't help but notice that Shio looks unusually cute. Suddenly, Shio shyly tells him that she needs to do something and runs ahead. Yonosuke is confused, but he still finds her expression adorable. He wonders if this means they'll start dating soon. Since holding hands is already normal for them, his thoughts drift further into more intimate moments he can share with her. Overcome with excitement, he starts running in place, his expression completely changing. Akari suddenly calls him gross. He freezes as Akari accuses him of seeing Shio like a comic book character. Yonosuke tries to explain himself, but Akari refuses to listen. She nearly hits him with her bag as she storms ahead. Yonosuke is left stunned by her reaction before realizing that she might actually be hiding her feelings for him by acting cold. The thought makes his eyes light up. Now he believes he's living his dream of being in a romantic comedy with both of his childhood friends. Meanwhile, in the bathroom, Shio worries that Yonosuke might already know how she feels. She frets over what his feelings toward her might be, realizing that their dynamic will change. Akari spots her, and based on Shio's blush, she has a feeling something happened and tries to confirm whether anything occurred between Shio and Yonosuke last night. Nearby, Yonosuke is in the men's restroom and overhears their conversation. It sounds to him like they're about to argue, so he rushes over to stop them. Just as he reaches the entrance, he hears Shio that she isn't going to date Yonosuke. She shows Akari a page from the comic on her phone and explains that she was just reenacting a scene to make fun of him. Yonosuke suddenly laughs from the entrance. He tells them that he knew it all along. He turns away and Shio tries to make amends. Unable to hold back anymore, he runs off, tears falling as his heart breaks. Shio is filled with regret for ruining her chance with him. Akari, meanwhile, feels secretly relieved, then immediately scolds herself for feeling that way. Yonosuke spends the entire first period on the rooftop. Later, during her bath, Akari finds herself thinking about Yonosuke. She tries to shake the feeling off and steps out of the tub, wondering if he has forgotten their promise. Suddenly, Yonosuke enters the bathroom and she immediately kicks him out. Downstairs, everyone gathers and Akari learns that Yonosuke's and Shio's houses both have broken bathrooms, so their families decided to come over to share the bathroom and have a small party. As the families mingle, Akari slips away and hides on the balcony. Yonosuke follows her to apologize, but she refuses to listen and even tells him to leave. The rejection frustrates him, especially since Akari used to beg him to stay when they were younger. Suddenly, Akari grabs his shirt and asks if he remembers their promise. He says that he does and leans closer. Akari expects a kiss, but instead he whispers that he promised never to leave her alone when she went to the bathroom. He fondly recalls how, during sleepovers, she used to wait both him and Shio to accompany her. He chuckles at the memory, which only annoys Akari. She had hoped he remembered a different promise, the one he made when her cat died, when he promised never to leave her side. Suddenly, Yonosuke softly repeats that same promise, then asks why she's bringing it up now. He freezes when Akari suddenly asks when he's going to make her his wife. Before he can respond, Shio wraps her arms around his waist, slightly drunk. Her mother explains that Shio somehow got tipsy from the atmosphere alone. When Shio falls back, she teasingly comments on how red Yonosuke's face is. Akari responds by slapping his back and walking ahead, smiling to herself as she teases him, satisfied that she still has an effect on him. Yonosuke spends his free day relaxing at the park. However, he overhears two kids promising to marry each other, which causes him to choke on his drink. He looks their way and blushes, realizing this is a common romantic comedy setup where the main couple are childhood friends. He tries to focus on enjoying his day, but he keeps getting distracted by his feelings for both of his childhood friends, Shio and Akari. Eventually, he can't control his thoughts and allows himself to dwell on them. He suddenly shouts in frustration, causing some people in the park to move away from him. As he grumbles about how annoying childhood friends are, Runa notices him and steps in front of him to observe. Yonosuke feels weirded out by her presence and tries to move somewhere else, but Runa keeps following him. He attempts to shake her off by circling the center of the park several times, yet she continues to walk beside him. He stops and is about to ask her something, but she suddenly steps in front of him and grabs his face to get a better look. She starts patting him, making Yonosuke think she's strange. Runa's eyes suddenly light up and she exclaims that she has finally found him, calling him brother along with his nickname. She spins around with him excitedly and Yonosuke realizes that the strange girl is Runa, one of his childhood friends. Yonosuke tries to demand an explanation for why she's here, but Runa is too dizzy to respond. Moments later, they return to Yonosuke's home, where his mother eagerly greets her. It takes a moment for his mother to realize that Yonosuke has brought Runa home with him. She then explains that Runa plans to attend his high school, but will be transferring to the nearby junior high. Yonosuke asks if they will be neighbors again, only to be shocked when she reveals that Runa will actually be living with him. Yonosuke's mother explains that it's a temporary arrangement and that Runa will be staying with them until spring. Looking at Runa, Yonosuke remembers that they were neighbors until 5 years ago. She was a year younger than the rest of them and always tried to hang out with him and his other childhood friends, though she often struggled to keep up. He thinks she was always cute back then, and she still looks cute to him now. As she starts checking her belongings, Yonosuke's mother tells him to clean the spare room upstairs for Runa. He is about to head upstairs when Runa suddenly calls out to him. For a moment, he thinks this is some kind of romantic comedy setup, but Runa quickly crushes his expectations when she shows him her old stuffed toy from when they were kids and admits she still needs it to sleep. They begin cleaning together, and Yonosuke complains that he wasn't told about the arrangement earlier, since he would have prepared the room sooner. He then tells Runa that he finds her impressive for having the courage to study away from her family. Runa blushes and says that she's actually excited because she gets to be with her favorite person. Yonosuke blushes as well, but quickly clears his thoughts and convinces himself that Runa only sees him as an older brother. When Runa tries to move a heavy box, the weight proves to be too much. Yonosuke quickly catches her and steadies her before she falls along with the box. He gently sets her back on her feet to check if she's okay. Runa ends up sitting on the floor, shaken by the sudden scare, and thanks him for saving her. By sunset, they finish unpacking and setting up the room. Runa shyly tells him that she likes him, but Yonosuke doesn't take it as a confession. He pats her head and calls her sweet for saying that. She tries to confess again, but Shio and Akari suddenly arrive to see Runa. When they spot her in the room, they rush over to hug her, and Runa recognizes them as Shio and Akari. She takes a closer look at them and exclaims about how much more mature they look compared to the last time she saw them. Later, Yonosuke takes a bath, still bothered by Runa saying she liked him. He knows she meant it in an innocent, sisterly way, but part of him had hoped it meant something more. He scolds himself for thinking that way about Runa. Meanwhile, the girls catch up in Runa's new room. Runa tells them that she has really come to like Yonosuke. Shio and Akari assume she means it innocently and tell her they already know since she was always close to him when they were kids. Deciding to be bolder, Runa admits that she actually means it in a more romantic way. Shio and Akari freeze, completely speechless. Yonosuke calls out to Runa and tells her she can now use the bathroom. She leaves them behind and heads off to take a bath, completely unaware of the chaos brewing in their minds. As Runa showers, it slowly sinks in for Shio and Akari just how serious her feelings for Yonosuke really are. After finishing her bath, Runa heads back upstairs. Instead of returning to her room, she decides to visit Yonosuke. When he opens the door, she asks if she can come in, but before he can answer, Shio and Akari quickly usher her inside along with them, effectively trapping all four of them in Yonosuke's room. Yonosuke complains about the girls crowding his room, but Shio and Akari quickly insist that they should all hang out together since Runa has finally reunited with them. Runa, unaware that they are trying to block her from Yonosuke, happily agrees. Shio and Akari are relieved they checked Yonosuke's room before Runa arrived. They hadn't expected her to move so quickly, and now both of them are on high alert. They are so preoccupied that it's already too late to stop Runa from sitting on Yonosuke's lap. Runa asks if he can help dry her hair, insisting that she wants to be spoiled a little since it's been so long since she's seen him. When Yonosuke agrees, Shio and Akari panic and immediately drag Runa away from him, hastily coming up with excuses about how Yonosuke might ruin her hair. In the end, Shio and Akari take over drying and tying Runa's hair themselves. Whenever Runa tries to talk to Yonosuke, the two girls quickly distract her with stories and chatter. Yonosuke lets out a sigh of relief, grateful that Shio and Akari are keeping Runa occupied. That relief vanishes when he suddenly feels Runa's feet brushing against his under the table. His heart jumps and he panics over her intentions, quickly grabbing her foot with his hand. Runa says that he's tickling her, which makes Shio and Akari immediately peer under the table. Akari scolds Yonosuke while he scrambles to defend himself, while Shio can't help but feel impressed by Runa's bold tactic. For a brief moment, Akari imagines herself doing the same, but she quickly snaps out of it, reminding herself that tonight's goal is to stop Runa's advances at all costs. Wanting some of Yonosuke's attention, Runa asks him to help her study. She quickly positions herself beside him so he can teach her. Akari and Shio immediately scramble over as well, insisting that they can help her study too. Yonosuke suddenly feels overwhelmed as all three of his childhood friends crowd around him. Pleased by the attention, Runa decides to sit between Yonosuke's legs so Akari and Shio can help her from either side. She gives Yonosuke a sweet smile and confidently says that she loves him. Not knowing how to respond, he awkwardly thanks her. Everyone freezes when Runa leans closer, causing the two of them to eventually topple to the ground. When Yonosuke looks at her face, he realizes she has fallen asleep. Akari and Shio feel relieved that Runa didn't try to kiss him, but they also realize that she had essentially already confessed. Yonosuke carefully tries to help Runa up so he can bring her back to her room, asking the girls to help him. As Runa sleeps, Akari and Shio look at her fondly. Even though she has become their rival, they still see her as their little sister. That doesn't stop them from worrying about Runa's advances toward Yonosuke, especially since they know they'll eventually have to leave her alone with him. Meanwhile, Yonosuke is in his room, trying to rid himself of any impure thoughts about Runa. At the same time, Runa sleeps peacefully, dreaming about him. The next morning, Runa tries to wake Yonosuke, but he continues to sleep. She pinches his nose, which finally works. Yonosuke turns bright red when he realizes how close she is to him. They start the day together, and Yonosuke is surprised by the luxurious breakfast Runa prepared. After taking a bite, he compliments how good it tastes, making her smile at his praise. She leans closer and asks if she would make a good wife, and he agrees. With how sweetly she treats him, it's hard for him not to imagine being in a romantic comedy with her. However, when she suddenly starts jumping around childishly and nearly spills the miso soup, the fantasy quickly breaks. He continues his routine, convincing himself that he was just being delusional the night before. He tells himself that all of Runa's actions are simply because they're childhood friends and she missed him. He wants to punch himself for even considering Runa as a romantic partner. Suddenly, he feels Runa's arms wrap around his torso as she sweetly asks him to go on a date with her. She reasons that she wants to visit old places so they can look back on things. Yonosuke struggles and continues to remind himself that he is like a brother to her, so he pats her head and agrees. They first head to the riverbank, where they used to play as children. Runa immediately runs in, while Yonosuke warns her not to fall in. Looking at Runa, he smiles, thinking that she really is just a kid, so he has nothing to be nervous about. Some guys notice Runa and immediately find her attractive. This makes Yonosuke admit that even if Runa acts like a kid, she does look her age and is considered attractive. Runa tries to convince Yonosuke to splash around, but he refuses, saying it's too childish, though he shuts up when Runa holds his hand and tries to coax him in. Temporarily mesmerized, he snaps out of it and tells Runa to take a seat, then begins scolding her for her clinginess. Runa calmly tells him that she's only clingy with him and that she won't act like this with just anyone. Yonosuke tries to argue, but they are interrupted when they notice a kid crying nearby. Approaching the boy, Runa easily calms him down, which impresses Yonosuke. They eventually find the boy's mother, and the child leaves with a smile on his face. Yonosuke calls what she did impressive, and Runa says that she wants to be someone who helps others stand, because when they were kids, everyone helped her stand. Facing Yonosuke, she shares that she's working hard to become a doctor. She reveals that she's been studying a lot and can already treat simple wounds. Yonosuke feels himself get a little embarrassed as he admits that he had always viewed her as a little kid. However, she has already figured out her life plan, making her more of an adult than he is. Runa corrects him and says that she really still is a kid who is just excited to become an adult. Yonosuke takes a good look at her, realizing that his perception of Runa had been wrong. He briefly wonders if her confession last night was romantic. Before he can ask, Akari and Shio immediately run up to him and greet Runa. Shio and Akari jump into the lake and begin splashing water on Runa and Yonosuke, coaxing them both to play. While Yonosuke finds it annoying, Runa is easily persuaded. All three girls begin playing in the water as Yonosuke watches from nearby. He feels embarrassed with himself since he was about to ask Runa about her confession. Suddenly, Runa appears in front of him, and for a brief moment, he expects another confession. But Runa simply shows him two crawfish and makes her way over to him. She trips on the way, making the girls worry and making Yonosuke realize that he cannot be in a rom-com with her. One morning, Akari observes Yonosuke in the school store. She knows he loves romantic comedy manga, so she is worried because Runa has basically confessed. Since then, she has been curious about what he feels for Runa. Eventually, Yonosuke calls her out for staring at him. Not wanting to admit that she grabs a random piece of bread and announces that she also wants to buy bread. As she marches forward to pay for the item, Yonosuke gets a glimpse of what it is and stops her. She realizes she is holding the extra hot curry bread. Yonosuke cautiously approaches her, insisting that she can still put it back on the shelf. However, Akari knows she will give herself away if she does that, so she puts on a confident facade and tries to make it sound like she wants to eat something hot. Yonosuke still insists that she put it down, telling her that it's way too much for her. To convince her, he claims to have bitten a piece before and been overwhelmed by the intensity. He also says that there are rumors about students eating that bread and having to leave school early. Akari feels herself getting sick at the stories but insists that she is aware of them and still wants the bread. He tries to convince her one more time by mentioning that her stubbornness will be her downfall, even betting that she'll throw it away after one bite. The statement pisses her off, so out of spite, she pays for the bread and swears to finish it. In the classroom, both she and Yonosuke pale as she opens the plastic containing the bread, the hot seasoning already wafting through the air. She tentatively licks it as Yonosuke tells her to take his melon bread instead. Stubborn as always, she takes the first bite. At first, the heat doesn't hit her, but once it does, she immediately regrets it as her tongue is brought into a world of pain. She squirms in her seat and Yonosuke makes a move to remove the bread from her desk, but she blocks his hand and takes another bite, scolding herself for getting into this mess. She chokes on the bread, instantly worrying Yonosuke. He decides to look for some milk for her, but Akari stops him, pleading with him to watch her finish the entire bread. Yonosuke is caught off guard by her request, but since Akari is gripping his hand so tightly, he decides not to argue as she forces herself to take bite after bite of the hot bread. She finally finishes it and triumphantly holds up the empty wrapper. A moment later, she realizes she is still holding his hand. Embarrassed, she quickly lets go and turns her face away. She hears Yonosuke apologize, telling her she was impressive because he never thought she could handle it. Akari looks at him with a dreamy expression. Still breathless, she blurts out that she likes him and panics and hastily corrects herself, claiming she meant that she likes hot food. Yonosuke accepts this explanation and sits back down. Not long after, the heat becomes too much for her, and she suddenly faints, leaving Yonosuke in a panic over her collapsed form. Final exams are over and summer break is about to begin. Shio and Akari are thrilled since they scored high on their tests. Meanwhile, Yonosuke remains preoccupied with his feelings for his childhood friends, despite knowing he has more pressing matters to attend to. Shio is about to ask him about his plans for the break, but he has already hurried off home. When he arrives, Runa excitedly greets him and proudly presents her perfect scores in every subject. Yonosuke pales at the sight, forcing out a shaky congratulations. Runa beams at the praise and eagerly asks for more, but Yonosuke has already brushed past her toward his room. Once inside, he realizes the real reason he's acting this way is that he's constantly distracted by Shio and Akari. He pulls out his study materials and starts studying intensely, determined not to fall behind among his childhood friends. 3 days pass and he still hasn't left his room. The girls are all gathered at his house to hang out, but Yonosuke continues to shut himself in. Annoyed by Yonosuke's stubbornness, Akari tells the girls that they should just make their summer plans without him. Runa feels uneasy and asks Akari if she really won't miss him. Akari refuses to admit how she feels, so Shio quickly comes up with a plan. While Yonosuke is busy studying, he hears a strange noise at his window. When he goes to check, he spots 3 puppets outside, cheerfully encouraging him as he studies. He slides the window open and catches the 3 girls red-handed. They awkwardly admit that they came to include him in their summer plans. Yonosuke immediately refuses and returns to his desk. Runa and Shio rush after him, insisting that he at least talk about summer with them. Akari confronts him, asking about his grades and arguing that there's no point in studying if his results are already bad. This only angers Yonosuke, who snaps back at her, which in turn makes Akari angry. Sensing the tension, Shio pulls the girls aside for a meeting in the corner of the room. After whispering among themselves, they agree on a new approach. They get Yonosuke's attention again and begin teasing him, saying he's going to waste his entire summer if he refuses to stop studying. When they finally leave his room, Yonosuke feels frustrated. Deep down, he wants to stand proudly beside Akari and Shio, but he knows he can't do that with an average grade. Sometime later, while he is deeply focused on his studies, he suddenly feels someone tapping him. He turns around, ready to scold them, but the words vanish in his throat when he sees all 3 girls standing behind him. They excitedly try to encourage him into going to the beach with them. Flustered, he finally admits that he actually wants to go with them. The girls gather around a magazine to choose which beach they should visit. Curious, they suddenly ask him about his test scores. After hesitating, Yonosuke agrees to show them, revealing excellent results in every subject. Still, he admits he feels embarrassed because he didn't manage to score perfect marks. Their reaction to his results makes Yonosuke curious about what Akari and Shio scored, but the girls awkwardly try to dodge the question. He quickly realizes that they didn't score as high as they claimed. With an amused sigh, he tells them they'll still have to study over the summer, which immediately makes both girls wail in despair. Eventually, Shio and Akari head home, leaving Yonosuke to take his bath. He grumbles that he didn't manage to study while they were there. Still, the thought of spending the summer with all 3 of his childhood friends makes him strangely giddy. Lost in his thoughts, he doesn't notice time passing until he hears the girls chatting outside. When the door opens, he quickly hides himself. While the girls prepare, Yonosuke pieces together from their conversation that they're having a pajama party. Runa suddenly comments on Shio's figure, amazed by how mature she looks, then turns to Akari and says she's cute by comparison. Akari grows embarrassed and snaps back that size doesn't really matter. The girls then start joking about what Yonosuke would look like if he were a girl, making Shio and Akari burst into laughter. In the process, Shio leans against the tub, causing the cover to slip slightly, revealing Yonosuke's head. Luckily, the girls don't notice and Yonosuke carefully adjusts the cover back into place. Soon after, they decide it's time to get in. Runa slides in first, only sliding the cover just enough for herself. Shio starts to move the cover so she can climb in as well. However, Shio stops when Runa suddenly asks what they think Yonosuke feels about them. She believes anyone would fall in love with them. Shio and Akari insist that Yonosuke doesn't have any romantic feelings for them. Akari even goes further, saying she wouldn't like it if Yonosuke did like her. This makes Runa admit that she would be ecstatic if Yonosuke ever confessed that he liked her. The declaration shocks Shio and Akari, and Shio slowly admits that she would also be happy if Yonosuke liked her that way. Feeling exposed, Akari finally shares that she wouldn't hate it if Yonosuke liked her either. Flustered, she quickly claims that the heat is getting to her and leaves. Shio and Runa decide to follow her. Once the door closes and the lights go out, Yonosuke finally emerges from the tub, relieved that no one seemed to notice him. As he finishes changing, his thoughts drift back to Shio and Akari and what he just overheard. Suddenly, Runa re-enters and spots Yonosuke there. She remarks that she's surprised he's still in there, confirming to him that she had noticed him earlier, though he has no idea how long she knew. Runa chooses not to say anything more about it. Before leaving, she teases him that she expects him to make up for today. Yonosuke blushes, realizing that his summer really does feel like the beginning of a romantic comedy with his childhood friends. When summer finally arrives, Shio is the first to meet Yonosuke at his house since they agreed to go together. As they walk toward their destination, Yonosuke feels like summer is the start of the romantic season. Still, it feels far from romantic because instead of doing anything fun, they're in the library to study. The idea was Shio's. She wanted them to work on summer homework together whenever they didn't have plans. Yonosuke had scolded her that day about focusing, yet now he is the one who is distracted by her. That day weighs on his mind, especially after what he overheard last night. He briefly considers the possibility of getting together with Shio or Akari, but quickly pushes the thought away, already imagining both of them turning him down. Akari notices his shifting gaze and tries to poke him to get his attention. When she gets his attention, she makes an encouraging gesture, which only makes his heart race. After their study session, they sit outside the study area. Yonosuke is forced to admit that Shiho actually did a good job staying focused. Smiling, Shiho says she wants to ask him something about a problem and leans against him to show her notes. Yonosuke complains about how close she is because of the heat, but Shiho only teases him and refuses to move away. He feels like she still treats him like a kid, yet wonders if he should show her that he actually likes her. Slowly, he tries to take her hand, but Shiho suddenly pulls back and proudly declares that she'll be able to finish all their lessons in a week. Yonosuke humors her, pointing out several of her mistakes and saying they'll need many study sessions over the summer. Shiho pouts, saying she wanted to spend the break making fun memories with him instead. Yonosuke reassures her not to worry, insisting that nothing between them will ever change. He even says that since they've been the same since grade school, he believes they'll stay that way even after graduation. Shiho tries to hide her disappointment, but her voice wavers as she asks what would happen if they went to different colleges or ended up with different partners or even had families in the future. To all of her worries, Yonosuke firmly says that they will always be childhood friends. Although Shiho is glad he values their bond, she isn't satisfied. Nervously, she asks what he would do if she asked him out. Yonosuke freezes, thinking this might finally be his rom-com moment with her. His fantasy immediately collapses when Shiho clarifies that she meant asking him out for ice cream. They leave the library together, with Yonosuke disappointed and Shiho determined to make their summer special. One summer day, the three girls run cheerfully toward the beach, thrilled to finally spend the day together. Meanwhile, Yonosuke trudges behind them, weighed down by all their bags. While the girls are full of energy, Yonosuke sulks by digging holes in the sand. Shiho and Runa call out to him, inviting him to join them in making shaved watermelon, but he only glances back at them with irritation before setting everything up properly. Instead of staying with them, he returns to his digging. The girls begin to wonder why he is in such a gloomy mood, unaware that he's frustrated because he isn't in a romantic comedy. Eventually, Akari snaps and scolds him for ruining the atmosphere. But Yonosuke insists that they should just have fun without him as he picks up a pretty shell. Akari gives up trying to convince him, but Shiho and Runa refuse to leave him alone and continue urging him to join them. Akari watches in shock at how boldly the two of them are acting. Shiho is determined to make this a meaningful summer with Yonosuke, and Runa feels the same, especially since this is her first summer back with him in years. Feeling both physically and emotionally overwhelmed, Yonosuke suddenly screams into the air to release his tension. He repeatedly reminds himself that all three girls are his precious childhood friends. Lately, he's been struggling to see them as just friends, and the sight of them in their swimsuits isn't helping at all. He tries to steady himself by recalling the promise he made to Shiho the other day. Despite this, Shiho decides to push her luck and boldly asks him to apply sunscreen on her back. At the same time, Runa starts rubbing sunscreen onto Yonosuke's back, making him freeze in embarrassment. He tries to get her to stop, but Runa quietly reminds him of what happened in the bathroom. Shiho and Runa then begin competing for his attention, leaving Akari stunned by how assertive they've become. While Akari panics over what she should do, Shiho and Runa are already dragging Yonosuke toward the sea. Akari notices a beach ball nearby and starts thinking of a way to reinsert herself into the group. Meanwhile, Yonosuke feels Shiho and Runa pressed close against him from both sides, and he steels himself, trying desperately to endure the situation. He suddenly remembers their first day of middle school, which was the first time he truly realized that Shiho and Akari had grown into very beautiful girls, and that he had started to feel attracted to them. Since then, he had put himself through strict training just to maintain a calm, stoic expression around them. But right now, he feels like that composure is about to crack. When Akari timidly asks him to play beach volleyball with her, he accidentally glares at her, instantly crushing her hopes. To hide her disappointment, she snaps back in anger, complaining that all she wanted was to have fun with him. Yonosuke immediately realizes he hurt her feelings, and his expression shifts into one of confusion and concern. Embarrassed by her own outburst, Akari suddenly pushes him into the ocean. What she doesn't know is that Yonosuke had actually been looking forward to today as well. The girls immediately rush to him, grabbing him to pull him up and checking if he's alright. Seeing their worried faces, which he finds unexpectedly adorable, Yonosuke suddenly gets a nosebleed. The girls panic, assuming he must have hit his head. He tries to hide it, but hints that he's embarrassed. Once they realize what he said, all three girls smile teasingly at him, while he desperately tries to take it back. From that point on, Yonosuke finally joins in with them, and they all enjoy the rest of their beach day together. Still, the girls refuse to let him live down the nosebleed, teasing him about it the entire time. As they head back toward the bus, Yonosuke feels like he spent the whole day being roasted. This only strengthens his resolve that he cannot get into a relationship with any of his childhood friends. Akari complains that he's walking too slowly, warning that he'll have to camp out at the beach if he misses the bus. Then she goes right back to teasing him, which irritates Yonosuke. He snaps back, complaining that he had to carry all their stuff all day. Akari immediately fumes, arguing that he lost their game, so carrying their bags is his punishment. Their argument escalates into a full shouting match, so much so that the bus ends up driving right past them. Shio and Runa don't even notice anything because they fell asleep the moment they boarded the bus. Both Akari and Yonosuke begin to panic when they realize that it was the last bus of the day. Akari checks her phone only to discover there is no signal. Yonosuke complains about their location, pointing out that they chose such a secluded beach. This immediately makes Akari angry, since she was the one who found the place. She starts walking ahead, and Yonosuke can't help but feel even worse about the situation, especially because he believes Akari hates him. Then he suddenly remembers overhearing her in the bathroom, when she admitted that she wouldn't mind it if he confessed to her. He snaps out of the memory when Akari calls out for him to start walking. She tells him they should follow the best route since it at least leads back toward the nearby town. Yonosuke stares at her absent-mindedly, still caught up in his thoughts. Seeing his blank expression only frustrates her further, so she snaps at him to hurry up before marching forward again. Yonosuke shakes his head to regain focus and follows after her. As they walk along the road, Akari starts to feel embarrassed. Being alone with Yonosuke makes her hyper-aware of everything, and for a moment she considers being as bold with her feelings as Shio and Runa. She quickly dismisses the idea and chooses to scold him again. Suddenly, a shadowy figure leaps out from the bushes. Akari screams and instinctively clings to Yonosuke. They both freeze, only to realize it's just a stray cat. The moment they notice how close they are to each other, both of them blush and quickly pull apart. Akari regains her composure and immediately complains about how touchy Yonosuke is. They continue walking, and before long, it becomes completely dark. Yonosuke admits that with all the bags he's carrying, he isn't sure how much longer he can keep going. He suggests trying to hitchhike, but Akari immediately shuts the idea down. Yonosuke then offers to run ahead to look for help, but this makes Akari panic. She shouts at him not to leave her alone, insisting that there are ghosts around. Yonosuke calls her a scaredy cat, and she's about to snap back at him when a loud crow caws nearby and scares her. Seeing that she is genuinely scared, Yonosuke decides to keep walking with her. As they continue along the path, Akari is still visibly shaken by their situation. Suddenly, she remembers that when they were younger, they had also gotten lost once. It had been getting late, and she was terrified. Back then, Yonosuke had taken her hand and reassured her that he wouldn't leave her alone. Now, in the present, Akari glances at his hand. Tentatively, she starts to reach for it, but stops herself. Just then, Yonosuke lets out a loud sneeze, startling her so badly that she falls backward in shock. When he turns around, he sees her sitting on the ground, trembling. He offers his hand to help her up, but she stubbornly refuses. She tries to stand on her own, but wobbles and begins to fall again. Yonosuke quickly catches her and lifts her onto his back so he can carry her the rest of the way. As they move forward, he complains that Akari was never this stubborn when they were children. The remark makes her feel slightly hurt since he was the one who first put distance between them. She starts struggling to get off his back, insisting that she's only making things harder for him. Yonosuke admits that he is tense, but only because he's focused on making sure she's okay. Hearing this, Akari realizes that deep down he hasn't changed at all. She blushes quietly in affection, but her thoughts are interrupted when Yonosuke suddenly points out that they've reached the city. At that moment, both of their phones buzz. Yonosuke answers, and it's Shio, who sounds relieved that one of her calls finally got through. After hanging up, Yonosuke tells Akari that his mother had booked a place for them in town to stay for the night. As they head toward the accommodation, Yonosuke grows uneasy because Akari has gone unusually quiet. He worries that she might be upset with him. When they arrive at the room, they discover it's a shared room with two futons placed side by side. Yonosuke immediately considers asking for a separate room, but Akari stops him, saying that it's fine that she actually wants to stay with him. Not wanting to get his hopes up, Yonosuke puts a little distance between them and jokingly asks if she's scared of ghosts. Instead of snapping at him, Akari simply smiles and thanks him for the day, adding that his actions reminded her of something from their childhood. Feeling unsure how to continue the moment, she excuses herself to take a bath. Moments later, Yonosuke decides to take a bath as well. He feels uneasy because the Akari he knows would normally react in disgust at the idea of sharing a room with him. When Yonosuke finishes, he leaves the men's bathing area still unsettled. He can't shake the feeling that this is merely the calm before the storm and that Akari is planning to make the evening a nightmare for him. Then he notices Akari quietly waiting for him beside the bathhouse. He approaches her, but she simply looks away without saying anything, which only makes him more suspicious. During dinner, the hotel has prepared a generous spread for them, and Yonosuke feels that maybe it was actually lucky they got left behind. However, Akari remains quiet, not sharing his enthusiasm. To cheer her up, he offers her his portion of shrimp and even checks whether the plates are warm enough. He does all this carefully, feeling like one wrong move could set her off. When he reaches over to pour her some tea, he accidentally spills it, splashing his hand in her bag. Yonosuke immediately panics, expecting her to explode in anger over it, but instead, Akari rushes to his side and fusses over his burned hand. Realizing how close they are, she lightly pushes him back and offers to clean up the mess while he cools his hand. In the powder room, as he runs cool water over the burn, Yonosuke grows even more confused by Akari's behavior. His heart starts racing at how unusually considerate she has been toward him. Later that night, Akari shyly suggests that they get ready for bed. They both glance at how close the two futons are. Yonosuke decides the safest option is to move them apart to create some distance. Once he's satisfied with the space between them, he quickly gets under his covers, facing away from her. He tries to force himself to sleep, but Akari suddenly turns off the lights and slips into his futon. In a quiet voice, she asks him not to be mean to her, saying she hates it when he acts cold. Then she begs him to look at her the way he used to when they were children. Remembering their past together, Yonosuke slowly turns toward her and drapes his arm over her, agreeing to her request. Feeling reassured, Akari softly whispers that she loves him before drifting off asleep. Yonosuke immediately opens his eyes. He sits up in a panic, wondering if he imagined it, but when he checks on her, Akari is already fast asleep. He's left feeling surreal, unsure whether her confession was real. The next morning, Yonosuke wakes up exhausted yet strangely refreshed. The thought that he might actually be living out a romantic comedy with his childhood friend makes him giddy. He heads to the powder room to greet Akari and ask about last night, but she's already back to her usual self. She sharply scolds him for walking in while she's getting ready. She then grabs her bag and announces that she's going home ahead of him. Yonosuke is left alone in the hotel room, even more confused about the confession and more convinced than ever that he cannot possibly be in a romantic comedy with his childhood friends. Meanwhile, on the bus, Akari suddenly wonders whether she really confessed the night before. The realization hits her, and she panics when she understands that she actually did. After the beach incident, Yonosuke lies defeated on a thin couch. He is certain that Akari confessed to him that evening, but the very next day she acted completely cold toward him. As he sinks deeper into his thoughts, Runa tries to convince him to go somewhere fun with her. He refuses, pointing out that they had just gone to the beach. But Runa insists they should still go out, explaining that she'll be heading home for Obon and will miss the summer festival. Even so, Yonosuke waves her off, reasoning that she'll be back soon anyway. His repeated rejection finally gets to her, and she turns to leave, complaining that he doesn't understand a girl's heart. That phrase strikes something in Yonosuke. He quickly catches up to Runa before she can leave and asks her to explain what she meant, which only confuses her. Meanwhile, burdened by the fact that she confessed, Akari sits outside Yonosuke's window armed with a baseball bat. She intends to erase his memory with it. As she wrestles with what she said that night, Yonosuke and Runa enter his room to talk. Akari notices and suddenly feels jealous that Runa is alone with him and suspicious about why he seems so secretive. Inside, Yonosuke tells Runa that he wants to ask about a girl's heart on behalf of a friend. He explains that this friend recently went on a trip with others but ended up missing the last bus and had to spend the night in a single hotel room with a girl. He adds that the girl started acting strangely during that time. Outside the window, Akari realizes that Yonosuke is clearly talking about them. Her heart pounds when she understands that he's consulting Runa about their situation, and she grows even more anxious as he continues. Runa gives him a suspicious look at first. Then her eyes light up as she realizes he's essentially asking her for relationship advice. Excited, she urges him to continue the story. Nervously, Yonosuke explains that when it was time to sleep, the girl slipped into his friend's futon. He says that since she seemed troubled, his friend hugged her, and after a few moments, the girl confessed that she loved him. Or at least, that's what he thinks she said. Outside, Akari's face turns bright red. Yonosuke continues by mentioning that the girl acted cold toward his friend the next day and then went home. He asks for Runa's interpretation of the events, and even Akari finds herself curious about what Runa will say. Runa tells him that his friend has zero chance with the girl in the story. She explains that while it might have been an honest misunderstanding, bringing it up the next day could have embarrassed the girl. She adds that it's also possible his friend misheard the confession entirely, but regardless, he should have pretended not to hear anything at all. Outside, Akari quietly insists to herself that Runa is completely wrong about her feelings. Yonosuke says he had been thinking the same thing since he always believed the girl hated his friend. He explains that she was always cold and scowling at him, and for some reason, only toward him. With this new detail, Runa pauses and retracts her earlier conclusion. Instead, she suggests that this might be a Tsukisaki situation. The unfamiliar term confuses both Yonosuke and Akari, so Runa explains that it refers to someone avoiding the person they like. She goes on to say that the girl in the story is obviously a tsundere. Runa elaborates, pointing out how the girl's cold behavior mixed with sudden warmth fits the classic tsundere trope perfectly. She confidently advises that Yonosuke's friend should aggressively pursue the girl, insisting that it would only make her fall for him even harder. Both Akari and Yonosuke panic at that suggestion. Runa then teasingly asks whether his friend is actually considering dating the girl. Yonosuke blushes and shyly admits that his friend wouldn't be opposed to dating the girl in the story. Hearing that, Akari's heart begins pounding wildly. She shifts slightly in her hiding spot but loses her balance and lets out a scream as she falls. Alarmed, Yonosuke rushes to the window and looks outside, discovering Akari. Though still shaken, Akari quickly regains her composure and snaps at him in an annoyed tone, calling him irritating. Yonosuke protests, insisting that he was only worried about her, especially since she nearly got hurt. Suddenly, Runa points and casually remarks that they can see Akari's legs. Startled, Akari tries to cover herself, but in doing so, she loses her balance and begins to fall off the roof. Without hesitation, Yonosuke climbs out onto the roof and grabs her, pulling her safely against him. Runa cheers, praising him for making it in time. Akari is about to thank him, but her expression quickly hardens. Flustered, she calls him an idiot, claiming that this is exactly why she had come over to beat some sense into him. She pushes herself off him and declares that she's going home. Instead of climbing back down the way she came, she enters his house so she can leave properly through the front door. It finally dawns on Runa that the friend in Yonosuke's story was actually him, and that the girl was Akari. Annoyed, Runa flatly tells him that he should think about his own actions. After she leaves, Yonosuke is convinced that he truly does not understand girls at all. Later, at the mall, Akari watches a commercial advertising the Inari Summer Festival. The ad promotes the idea that kissing under the fireworks will bless the relationship. Akari's face turns red as she imagines kissing Yonosuke during the fireworks. The commercial continues by promoting a lipstick. She tries to shake the image from her mind, but finds herself staring at a specific lipstick said to be perfect for her situation. Before she can decide, Shio and Runa spot her. As Akari approaches them, the commercial begins playing again. Runa's eyes sparkle the moment she hears about the love legend tied to the festival. She gushes excitedly, saying she wishes she could go so she could invite Yonosuke. That comment makes both Shio and Akari pause. They realize at the same time that the festival might be their opportunity. Quickly masking her flustered feelings, Akari adopts an annoyed tone and urges the others to continue shopping for yukatas. At one of the stores, Shio and Runa each hold up different designs, complimenting each other as they compare patterns. Watching them, Akari grows thoughtful. She reflects on Shio's recent behavior and begins to wonder if Shio might also have feelings for Yonosuke. Akari's eyes drift toward a floral hairpiece, and she reaches out to grab it, only for Shio's hand to reach for the matching one beside it at the same time. Realizing they're about to choose the same design, Shio quickly apologizes, admitting she didn't mean to pick the same one as Akari. Akari immediately tells her to take it instead, insisting it would suit her perfectly. But Shio gently smiles, suggesting that they would both look great wearing matching pieces, so they should get the pair. Akari returns the smile and agrees, picking up the identical hairpin. As she does, she reflects on her relationship with Shio. They've been best friends since childhood and have rarely ever fought. She remembers how generous Shio has always been. When they were little, Akari once wanted the last donut, but Shio had grabbed it first. The moment she realized Akari wanted it too, she split it in half without hesitation so they could share it. However, when it comes to Yonosuke, they cannot split him. Shiva notices her downcast mood and sees that Akari has been staring at a poster advertising the fireworks show. Akari explains that they've always watched the festival fireworks together as a group and she's looking forward to doing it again with everyone. Shio leans against the railing thoughtfully and mentions that she once saw a TV report claiming the Inari fireworks legend might actually be true, that couples who get together during the festival often end up marrying. Akari states that the legend doesn't really apply to them, since they always watch as a group. But then Shio quietly adds that this year she wants to watch the fireworks alone with Yonosuke. Akari freezes since this confirms her suspicion. Still, she forces a smile and tells Shio she should go for it. She promises she'll be mindful not to get in the way. She even admits that she had suspected Shio might feel that way, though she wasn't entirely sure. Shio asks if it's truly okay for her to invite Yonosuke. She tells Akari she wants to be honest and that Akari should be honest too because she has a feeling that Akari might have the same feelings for him. Realizing she's been seen through, Akari feels memories of her time with Yonosuke flash through her mind. Her chest tightens and finally she admits that she also wants to watch the fireworks with just Yonosuke. Shio suddenly feels lighter because the two of them are being completely honest with each other. Instead of feeling upset, she feels relieved and refreshed. She smiles warmly and tells Akari how happy she is that Akari finally admitted she likes Yonosuke. She even says she's grateful that another one of their childhood friends has feelings for the same boy they grew up with. Shio extends her hand and declares that no matter who wins Yonosuke's heart, there will be no hard feelings between them. Akari silently thanks her and takes Shio's hand firmly, declaring that she won't lose. On the evening of the Inari Summer Festival, the group attends together. But Akari knows that once the fireworks begin, Yonosuke will choose only one of them. What makes it worse is that she still hasn't worked up the courage to properly invite him to watch the fireworks with her. She remembers how, in the days leading up to the festival, she had tried several times to ask him, only for her nerves to betray her. Instead of inviting him to the fireworks, she somehow ended up asking him to join her for morning exercises. Her cheeks burn at the embarrassing memory. Yonosuke suddenly grabs her wrist, snapping her back to the present as he continues walking ahead through the crowded festival. Shio raises her voice, attempting to invite him to watch the fireworks later, but Yonosuke either doesn't hear her or misunderstands. He simply reminds her to be careful while walking, since she isn't used to wearing a yukata. Shio realizes this is much harder than she expected. She notices Akari trying as well. Akari opens her mouth to invite him, but her tsundere instincts take over and instead she criticizes his outfit. Shio then wraps an arm around her. The two share a good-natured laugh at their own failures before realizing that the fireworks will begin soon. They trail slightly behind Yonosuke, whispering and encouraging each other to confess first, yet neither of them can bring themselves to do it. Suddenly, Yonosuke appears next to them with a menacing aura. The girls brace themselves, thinking he's about to scold them. Instead, he reveals the masks and snacks he bought for both of them, insisting they enjoy the festival properly. He makes sure to give them equal amounts before leading them toward the game stalls. The girls are puzzled by his sudden burst of enthusiasm, but Yonosuke is determined to have fun and keep everyone distracted. In truth, he has noticed the strange tension between them. Rather than confront it, he chooses to ignore it. He stuffs a large bite of yakisoba into his mouth and chokes on it. Both girls immediately rush to pat his back. Once he recovers, they burst into laughter. The scene reminds them of how he used to get overly excited at festivals when they were younger. But then an announcement echoes through the festival grounds that the fireworks will begin shortly. They both try once more to invite him, but Yonosuke keeps misunderstanding their attempts, thinking they're asking for more food or wanting to play another game. Finally, fed up, they act at the same time. Each girl grabs one of Yonosuke's hands. Together, they confess that they want to watch the fireworks alone with him. They decide to give him a choice. If he goes to the Torii Gate, he will watch the fireworks with Shio. If he goes to the shrine grounds, he will watch them with Akari. And with that, the decision is left entirely in his hands as the girls rush to their respective areas. Before deciding where to go, Yonosuke recalls one of their summer festivals back in junior high. The girls had been excited that night, and even then, he had already been aware of his attraction to both of them. To preserve their friendship, he deliberately acted aloof, convincing himself that neither of them would ever see him as boyfriend material anyway. But tonight is different since both girls have run off in separate directions, each expecting him to choose one of them by the end of the night. What neither of them realizes is that Haru, another one of Yonosuke's childhood friends, witnessed the entire exchange from a distance. It takes Yonosuke a moment to snap out of his daze. He shakes his head, refusing to believe that either of them was seriously confessing to him. Thinking rationally, he convinces himself this must be another one of Akari and Shio's elaborate attempts to tease or embarrass him. He begins walking aimlessly through the festival, trying to clear his head. But the image of them grabbing his hands, asking him to choose, keeps replaying in his mind until he feels like he might lose it. Then suddenly, he hears Akari scream nearby. He turns and spots her standing near a tree. Believing he's still out of sight, she mutters to herself about the festival legend, the one that promises love and happiness to couples who kiss when the last firework bursts in the sky. In truth, she's incredibly nervous about the idea of kissing him and wonders how she's even supposed to go through with it. Flustered, she decides to practice using the festival mask she's holding as a stand-in. Yonosuke slowly approaches and eventually she notices him. Horrified, Akari flushes bright red and immediately begins throwing small rocks in his direction, demanding to know why he's there. Yonosuke dodges, trying to calm her down, and instead asks why she's the one hiding out there. She stops throwing rocks but quickly hides the mask behind her back. Yonosuke feels suspicious and wonders if what he saw earlier was her practicing to kiss someone. Just then, he overhears a nearby group chatting excitedly about the festival legend. He turns slightly and listens in. The words echo in his mind, and suddenly a realization hits him. Both Akari and Shio are probably preparing to kiss him during the fireworks show. When the nearby group leaves, Yonosuke nervously asks Akari whether what they were saying about the legend has anything to do with how she and Shio have been acting. Akari's face turns bright red, and instead of answering, she suddenly runs off in embarrassment. Yonosuke doesn't fully understand why, but before he knows it, his feet are carrying him after her. As he chases her through the festival crowd, he begins to think this is the start of their romantic comedy. But his imagination is cut short when a large man suddenly grabs him, accusing him of harming Akari. Within moments, a few other festival goers join in, misunderstanding the situation and pinning Yonosuke to the ground. Seeing this, Akari freezes, then quickly feels a wave of guilt. Shyly at first, she tries to explain that it's all a misunderstanding and that Yonosuke is actually her friend. When no one listens, she raises her voice and firmly clarifies the situation. After a tense moment, the crowd disperses, grumbling that it was only a couple's quarrel. At that comment, both Yonosuke and Akari flush deeply. They instinctively turn away from each other. Yonosuke tries to speak first, but Akari stops him. She tells him they can talk properly after he decides whether to choose her or Shio. And if he chooses her, she promises to finally come clean about everything she's been hiding from him. They lock eyes for a brief, charged moment, but Akari breaks eye contact first and begins walking away. She only stops when Yonosuke's phone starts ringing. He answers and she learns that it's Shio, and from his expression, it's clear the conversation isn't what he expected. Shio tells him that she won't be watching the fireworks with him after all since something came up. She tells him not to worry about her and to enjoy the fireworks with Akari instead. Then she hangs up right after. Earlier, after telling Yonosuke to meet her at the Torii gate, Shio had hurried off toward the meeting spot, fully intending to wait for him there. But after putting some distance between them, she checked the time. There were still 53 minutes left before the fireworks. She took a deep breath and tried light stretches, hoping to calm her racing heart. It didn't help and time seemed to crawl. The longer she waited, the more anxious she became, to the point where she felt like she might faint from anticipation and miss her chance entirely. That's when she heard a child crying nearby. Turning toward the sound, she spotted a young girl who appeared to have gotten separated from her parents. Shio checked the time again and realized she still had plenty of time, so she decided to help. They searched around, and eventually, Shio managed to reunite the little girl with her mother. After bidding them farewell, she noticed an elderly woman struggling to walk. Without hesitation, Shio offered her back and carefully carried her to a bench where she could rest. Not long after, she heard a pained cry. Turning toward the sound, she saw a pregnant woman clutching her stomach. Alarmed, Shio rushed over just as the woman collapsed to her knees. She ended up accompanying the woman to the hospital, making sure she was safely admitted. Only then did she check the time and she realized that the fireworks were about to begin. Panic set in as she realized she didn't have enough money left for a taxi and walking back would take at least 30 minutes. If she ran, she might make it in time for the finale. Determined, she took off, but after only a few steps, her sandals snapped. With a quiet exhale, she decided to give up and call Yonosuke, telling him he no longer had to choose her, that he should just enjoy the fireworks with Akari. She forced her voice to sound cheerful by smiling so he wouldn't worry. Her mind drifts back to when they were younger. One day, her father had to leave for work and told Yonosuke to keep Shio company. Yonosuke stayed with her the entire evening, even when she insisted he could leave. He stubbornly refused, declaring he would stay by her side until her father returned. She had found it incredibly endearing until he defeated her in a game and began bragging. That was when her younger self realized he probably just wanted to win more rounds. Even so, they spent the whole evening playing together. Returning to the present, Shio convinces herself that what she did tonight was the right choice. If she had told Yonosuke the truth, he would have rushed over out of concern. She and Akari had finally found the courage to be honest about their feelings. She doesn't want Akari's efforts to go to waste because of her. In the distance, Shio sees the fireworks burst across the sky. She wonders if her childhood friends are watching them together right now and whether they will kiss during the finale. A small smile forms on her lips. If she has to lose, she's glad it would be to Akari. Just then, she hears someone call out beside her. It's the husband of the pregnant woman she brought to the hospital. He bows deeply, thanking her for helping his wife and child. When he asks what she had planned for the evening, everything she had been looking forward to suddenly rushes back to her. Forcing a smile, she tells him she was simply happy to help and that she couldn't ignore someone in need. Besides, she's sure Yonosuke would have done the same. But as more fireworks light up the sky, something shifts inside her. With a sudden burst of resolve, she slips off her broken sandals and starts running barefoot toward the festival grounds. She can't give up that easily as she realizes she wants Yonosuke for herself. She can't just hand him over to Akari, not after trying so hard to earn his attention. She knows she's late, but maybe she can still make it in time for the final firework. Just as hope fills her chest, a loud blast echoes overhead. Then comes the announcement that the fireworks have concluded. Tears well in her eyes, and in a quiet, trembling voice, she admits, to no one in particular, that she really wanted to watch the fireworks with Yonosuke. Then she hears Yonosuke's voice, lightly scolding her for not being honest over the phone. She blinks in shock, wondering where Akari is, and Yonosuke tells her that she is behind her. Before she can even turn around, Akari wraps her arms around her from behind and calls her an idiot. Both of them begin scolding Shio at the same time. They know her too well. She always tries to handle everything on her own and refuses to ask for help. Now that they see her up close with scraped knees, bare feet, and obviously tired, they're even more certain she must have gone through a lot. Shio lowers her head and apologizes for ruining the fireworks for everyone. But Yonosuke and Akari exchange smiles. They reveal the small firecrackers they bought so the three of them could still enjoy something together. Finding an empty park nearby, they light several at once. The sparks dance in the dark and Yonosuke laughs at the sight, making the two girls smile at each other. As they light the sparklers, Yonosuke and Akari explain how they managed to find Shio. Apparently, after she hung up, Yonosuke immediately became determined to look for her, only to realize they had no idea where she had gone. So the two of them searched the festival grounds, calling out her name. After a while, an elderly woman approached them. She asked if they were Shio's friends, recognizing the matching hairpin Akari was wearing. The old woman then told them everything that had happened. She spoke with deep gratitude, praising Shio for helping everyone she encountered that evening. Listening to the story, Shio feels her heart swell. But she quickly grows embarrassed when Yonosuke and Akari laugh, saying that it's completely on brand for her to help strangers instead of prioritizing her own plans. Yonosuke says they can always watch the grand fireworks show next year. For now, this will be their own special show, just the three of them. To end the night, they decide to light the biggest firework they have left. All three of them brace themselves for something spectacular. Instead, it fizzles into a surprisingly small and short burst of lights. Yonosuke and Akari immediately complain, arguing that they should have set it off together with the other fireworks for a bigger effect. But Shio's eyes remain fixed on the spot where their tiny firework bloomed. After a moment, she turns back to them and thanks them and declares that, to her, this has been the best summer yet. A little later, as Shio and Akari light the remaining sparklers, Shio quietly apologizes. She feels guilty for ruining Akari's chance earlier. After all, she was the one who suggested they both confess honestly, and Akari had worked so hard to gather her courage for tonight. Akari immediately calls her an idiot, reminding Shio of their promise of no hard feelings no matter what. Akari tells her she doesn't need to worry anymore. From now on, they'll compete fairly for Yonosuke's affection. She even adds that winning tonight wouldn't have felt right if Shio hadn't been given a fair chance. Seeing the determination in Akari's eyes, Shio rises in agreement. Just then, they hear loud snoring coming from a nearby bench as Yonosuke has fallen asleep. The two girls walk over and begin complaining about how he hasn't changed at all since they were kids. Shio grins mischievously and leans closer, inviting Akari to mess with him a little. Without overthinking it, they each lean in and plant a quick kiss on both of his cheeks. When they pull back, they stare at each other, then burst into laughter, exhilarated by the thrill of sharing the same crush. Yonosuke stirs awake at the sound of their laughter. Panicking, the two girls immediately run away, leaving him confused and wondering what they just did to him. Meanwhile, in another part of town, Haru gazes up at the night sky. She wonders if the boy she saw earlier at the festival was really Yonosuke. One day, Yonosuke sits in a cafe thinking about the events of the summer festival. Both Shio and Akari hinted that they loved him that evening, yet neither of them has contacted him about it since. He grows frustrated about getting his hopes up. He's pulled out of his thoughts when Runa returns to their table with refreshments. Trying to focus on her instead, he asks if it's really okay for her to be paying for everything. She tells him this is her way of spending time with him after missing the summer festival. She casually mentions that today counts as a date, but notices Yonosuke's mood drop at the word date. She immediately suspects something must have happened during the festival. At first, Yonosuke denies it, but he eventually admits that he feels stupid for thinking he was in a romantic comedy. Before he can finish, Runa feeds him a spoonful of ice cream and firmly declares that one day he will be part of a romantic comedy. She then adds that for her, it's always been a romantic comedy. Yonosuke stares at her, blushing at the implication of her words. Before she can clarify, the buzzer goes off, signaling that their food is ready. He watches her walk away, trying to shake off any feelings. Suddenly, he hears Haru teasing him about always having every girl's attention. He turns to look at her, but doesn't recognize her. His eyes briefly drift to her skirt, and he quickly looks away, insisting she must be mistaking him for someone else. She laughs, realizing what flustered him, and reassures him she's wearing shorts underneath. Then she casually calls him by his childhood nickname before riding off on her bike. When Runa returns and asks who Haru was, Yonosuke admits that he doesn't know her. On the first day back at school, Shio and Akari rush Yonosuke to get ready since he's the only one not dressed yet. The three of them walk to school together with the girls slightly ahead of him. As he watches them, Yonosuke reflects on their friendship and slowly convinces himself that he'll never be in a romantic comedy with either of them. Suddenly, Haru rides up beside him on her bike. She proudly teases him for walking to school with two pretty girls while also having lunch with another cute girl last weekend. She pulls him into a playful side hug, shocking all of them since neither Shio nor Akari recognizes her. The girls ask what other girl she's talking about, and Yonosuke explains that he had lunch with Runa. Haru is surprised to learn that the girl was Runa. She then takes a closer look at Shio and Akari, commenting that they look completely different from before. She hugs both girls before riding off again, leaving the trio confused. Later on campus, a group of boys crowds around Yonosuke because of a rumor that he's dating 3 girls at once. Akari overhears and fumes. The sharp edge in her voice makes the boys uneasy as she demands to know who started such a ridiculous rumor. During their break, the trio gathers to discuss it. Shio reveals that the rumor was spread by a girl named Haru. She's popular as a Star Trek athlete, so people were quick to believe her. Yonosuke notices girls whispering about them. Deciding to settle things directly, he goes to confront Haru. At Haru's classroom, he shyly asks one of her classmates if he can speak to Haru. The classmate tells him that Haru is in her club room. Yonosuke becomes overly apologetic, which makes Shio and Akari worry. When he reaches the club room, he knocks but enters without waiting for permission. He freezes when he sees Haru in the middle of changing. Upon recognizing him, she doesn't panic and casually tells him to wait. Once she's dressed, she invites him inside. He enters while deliberately avoiding eye contact, but he trips and lands on top of her. His face turns bright red as he begins apologizing, but Haru only clutches her stomach and laughs, teasing him for being rude. She then turns her smile to him and asks why he's acting so bashful. Yonosuke looks confused as he slowly rises, but Haru cups his face to make him look at her, realizing that he doesn't remember her at all. Meanwhile, in the courtyard, Akari and Shio anxiously wait for news from Yonosuke since they know he doesn't handle confrontations with girls very well. Deciding to check on him, they head to the club room only to be shocked by what looks like a compromising position between him and Haru. When they overhear Haru offering to let him touch something, they immediately jump to conclusions. They slam the door open and demand to know what's going on. They start accusing Yonosuke, but he quickly scrambles away from Haru and explains that they actually know her too. He reminds them that Haru used to attend Nishi University with them. Back then, Haru had a boyish appearance and would constantly roughhouse with Yonosuke while the girls watched from a distance. Because of how she looked and acted, they had simply assumed she was a boy. Shio and Akari stare at Haru in complete shock. Haru quickly understands that their reactions stem from that misunderstanding. She explains that she tried talking to them during their first semester, but they ignored her. She also adds that she always found it strange how Yonosuke used to casually invite her to the bathroom with him. Yonosuke flushes in embarrassment, unsure how to address her now, but Haru casually drapes an arm over his shoulder and insists they just call each other by their names. Feeling awkward, Yonosuke inches away, but Haru corners him against the lockers and with a teasing smile, asks if he's nervous now that he knows she's actually a girl. The girls are stunned by her boldness, but Haru suddenly releases him and covers her face, admitting she feels a little bad for assuming they were still close friends. Then she bursts out laughing at how flustered Yonosuke looks. Irritated, he tries to defend himself, but Haru throws an arm around him again and says she understands. Shio and Akari quickly pull Haru aside, saying they need to talk to her. They explain the rumors spreading around campus, and Haru is shocked to learn how her words were twisted. She promises to clear up the misunderstanding. She then casually asks if the 3 of them are dating since the entire school already assumes Yonosuke is with either Shio or Akari. The trio falls silent, awkwardly explaining that it's not like that. For some reason, this visibly relieves Haru, and even Yonosuke notices. With the issue mostly settled, Shio and Akari head back to class. Yonosuke lingers behind, trying to figure out why Haru seems so relieved. He assumes she was just glad there wasn't any cheating involved, but he's caught off guard when Haru invites him to meet her at the old park. Yonosuke agrees and is about to invite the others along, but Haru grabs his wrist and says she wants it to be just the 2 of them. Later, Yonosuke waits alone at the park, wondering why she insisted on being privately. As he tries to clear his head, Haru suddenly sneaks up behind him and scares him. She comments that he's early, and he argues that he didn't have anything else to do. Then, without warning, she starts unbuttoning her uniform. Yonosuke panics, only to realize she's wearing a shirt underneath and has been holding a basketball the whole time. They start playing, and Haru teases him for not being any better at the game. She then casually admits she's relieved he isn't dating anyone yet. Otherwise, they probably wouldn't be able to play basketball. Yonosuke gets momentarily distracted by her figure, giving Haru the perfect opening to slip past him and make the shot. She laughs and teases him for being rusty, saying he's not nearly as physical as he used to be when they were younger. Yonosuke argues that he could easily score if he were actually playing seriously, so Haru immediately challenges him to prove it. In the next round, he gains possession of the ball and asks why she suddenly stopped coming to the park. She casually answers that she was busy, then swiftly steals the ball and scores again. Trying once more, Yonosuke asks why she never approached them. Haru smirks and reminds him that none of them even realized she was a girl. She steals the ball again and flashes him another teasing smile. The way she keeps provoking him makes Yonosuke realize that Haru hasn't changed from the kid he used to play with. Determined to stop her, he guards her more roughly this time. They struggle for the ball and tumble to the ground, but Haru still manages to throw up a shot and score. They land with Yonosuke hovering over her. He's startled to suddenly become aware how feminine she looks beneath him as she proudly announces that she's won. Flustered, he quickly scrambles off her, trying to steady his thoughts while Haru gets to her feet and declares that since she won, he now owes her something. Yonosuke frowns, then suggests that he just answers her question. She mentions hearing about the festival and Shio and Akari's confession. What she wants to know is which one he plans to give an answer to. Yonosuke feigns ignorance, attempting to sound confident as he turns away and says she must have heard wrong. Haru teases him, pointing out that he clearly sees Shio and Akari as more than just friends. She steps in front of him, blocking his path, and insists he spill the truth about Runa too. Yonosuke lies through his teeth, claiming he doesn't want to start a love comedy with any of them. But Haru easily sees through him. She reminds him of when they were kids and got caught drawing graffiti on a wall. An adult had scolded them, and Yonosuke tried to tell the most obvious lie imaginable. She points out that the way he's lying now is exactly the same. She presses him to admit the truth, but Yonosuke stubbornly refuses. For some reason that irritates Haru. She challenges him to another battle, and if he wins, she'll never bring up his feelings for the other girls again. But if she wins, he has to tell her everything. Yonosuke initially refuses, which only makes Haru whine. Annoyed, he finally agrees, but only on the condition that they play their old game. Haru understands immediately and notes that Yonosuke has the most wins, though she admits she's been training relentlessly. They cover their faces and begin the familiar chant. When they reveal their exaggerated expressions, they both fight to keep from laughing. They acknowledge that their skills are still sharp. Haru switches faces and Yonosuke notes that she's improved. When she reveals a particularly strange expression, she proudly admits she practiced it just last week. The thought that she was seriously practicing for this almost makes him laugh, but he forces himself to stay composed. Haru is clearly struggling not to break, but she suddenly brings up how, when they were kids, Shio once asked her whether Yonosuke liked anyone. She adds that Akari quietly liked him from afar, and that Runa was always open about her feelings. Yonosuke tries to argue that she's misreading everything, but Haru insists she just wants to know because, as his childhood friend, she wants to cheer him on properly. His expression falters in surprise, and Haru bursts into laughter, declaring his normal face the funniest one yet. She's about to drop the topic, but Yonosuke suddenly sits down and admits that he likes them. But Yonosuke says he wants to tell her anyway because he trusts her. He confesses that he isn't even sure if he's truly in love with any of them, but whenever he's around them, he feels foolish for getting his hopes up. Haru gently pokes his cheek and declares that she'll go ask the girls directly how they feel about him, since she wants to support his love life properly. Later, the group gathers to celebrate their reunion with Haru. Shio and Akari immediately shower her with compliments, and Haru notices that Runa isn't there. Yonosuke lingers by the bench, remembering his conversation with Haru. He's nervous she might bring up his confession. He even tried to bribe her silence with a pizza bun, but he has a feeling that won't stop her. Right on cue, Haru casually asks Shio and Akari about their feelings for Yonosuke, causing all of them to freeze. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to see what happens next.